Hey, bro. Sorry, I was replying while I was having dinner, so I was like looking at the comment that I replied. Just yeah. So I mean, don't thank me, dude. I thank you for just like yeah. I mean, how do we fix this? Like I just did just like my reaction video towards like Dr. Ramani. I don't know if you want to check that video out, but I guess she's like a psychologist on narcissism. She's got a channel where it's just everything narcissism, everything about narcissism. And I just use that as like an example of what's wrong with the system. And it's just the words. Um, it's not a good feeling to hold thoughts that are troubling inside the mind. I'm 40 years old and I've just made like a commandment to myself, or just like one of my golden rules is just, don't hold a grudge, because holding a grudge is just like letting somebody live inside your mind rent free, you know? And so I don't know the extent of what, like, you would say your own, because I know you know yourself better than anybody, and just I hate it when people like us who are just like, I know myself better than anybody, and then you get told by some professional like, no, that's classic narcissism, or it's just like, so I just have, that's like one of my trigger words. um Disorder. You have a personality disorder. Mental illness. I hate, I just hate these words that normal. Normal is my least favorite word in the entire human language. So whenever I get told like, you're crazy, like the first times that I heard that, like I was just like, God, am I crazy? Like, it's just like self manifesting destiny. It's just like, again, my culture, like the Korean culture, is like total taboo on admitting you have mental health like troubles. Um, and then if you admit it, it's even more taboo to even like say it, like telling one person that's like, oh God, I can't believe it. Like, and then yeah, the next thing is just like, well, we can't tell anybody this. And it's just like, oh my God. And again, when I see that case of Ethan Crumbly, and I totally understand why you are apprehensive about revealing just the full details of, especially like, religious visions. And this is where I'm just saying, like, you wrote it as, you purposely do not talk about or include any of your many religious visions and hallucinations. So this is where, if you're gonna choose the word, let's just go with visions, man. Like, we have to set it for the norms and just say they're not hallucinations. I'm calling them visions. And this is something I would like to talk to Chris about, because like, I know his heart's in the good place, but again, when I just watch that, it's like effectiveness or whatever. Like, I'm like, what? You know, and it was like a guy who was just Korean like me, who I told, like, he doesn't have a personality disorder. That's like a cultural clash where, yeah, he's just like, my psychiatrist or my therapist said that I just don't express anger, you know, or, and he like made like a comment about how like Korean people just don't feel anger. And I was like, I don't know what parents you grew up with, but like, but again, a lot of mental health is directly correlated with upbringing. But again, I saw the pictures of just like you. I don't know. I'm guessing like these are pictures from like when you were deployed or when you were enlisting or something like that. But I mean, I just, you know, again, I don't want to push you because I know. So like, again, I'm not making these videos for any kind of gain. These are personal videos for you because you want to talk about crazy religious visions, dude, like, let me show you and this is where I feel like we are all connected, because my visions are pretty much, yeah, I mean, religious based. But then like, are part of the visions that you are seeing like signs. When I say that, like, I remember you were saying like, you just have this feeling that somebody's going through your phone. Like, you know, nobody's here, but you just like can't shake it. I know that feeling. And I, like you, started like, it wasn't that I had anything to hide, but it was just like, is somebody watching me? Is like somebody who maybe like worried about me, like trying to help me in this way? Like, when you say that, like, I did it because I'm like sitting here like looking at my phone, and then all of a sudden it's just like scrolling on its own. I'm just like, what the heck? You know, and I'm like, is there like a smudge on it? And then like something more, like, it would be, I'm just like working on a project, and just whatever I'm doing, like, all of a sudden, and it was like YouTube, and I like kind of pinpointed it to maybe like target marketing ads or something like that. So I just kind of like switched that option off just to see if it would kind of help like my paranoia of this. But again, I had to sit back and ask myself, okay, even if somebody's watching, what am I bothered about? The fact that I don't know who's watching, or if I'm being watched, or why they're watching, or am I troubled by what whoever's watching is gonna find? I don't think that's the case with you. It's the feeling that this is happening, right? So correct me if I'm wrong on that. Now, with my religious things, it all started when, you know, like, I've had a lot of signs in my life where it wasn't like freaky to the point where like I just was like terrible. Like, let me give you an example. When I mean, I do like comedy, and I honestly think comedy would be a great starting point just to kind of get a baseline of where to start. And I only say that because, again, the taboo of just not being able to get help, even as an American Korean, I'm like, well, the American society has therapists, so. But again, I'm kind of glad that I wasn't, really allowed to do that kind of stuff, because, yeah, the one time where I just took upon like these things, and then my family was finally like, okay, let's go see a family therapist. And I was like, all right, fine, great, that's great. And then I find out, like, I get to the therapy office, and it was like weird because there was like no secretary. There was like nobody in the office. Like none of the offices were like, and I was like, what? And then I'm like looking around for somebody, and finally somebody came in, and I'm like, hey, is this like the therapist, like clinic? And, oh yeah, who are you here to see? I'm like, I don't know. Like my family said they were coming down here, and I don't know. I've just been waiting here for like 15, 20 minutes. Like, it's like, oh, well, this is like a independent, or like a subcontracted office. So each, psychiatrist is like a subcontractor. It's not like all one. I was like, okay, that's kind of weird. And I was like, are you and she's like, I would like to be. And I was like, well, I don't know if I'm supposed to see you, but since you're the one helping me, yeah. But then she's like, let me see if who's around here. And she just like knocked around, and she's like, well, the only other person here is, I can't even remember her name, but I was like, oh, thank you. And she was like, yeah, she said, just wait there. She'll be out in just a second. And I'm like, all right, I've been here for like 20 minutes. She told me to be here at like 4. It's like 4:30 now. Like, what the? And then she comes out while I'm like smoking, I guess. I'm like, all right, it's been like another 15 minutes. I'm like walking by her door. It's still closed. I don't know. I didn't want to like intrude to see if she's with somebody. So I just like went outside, downstairs, quick smoke, came back up like maybe 10 minutes. And then, I come back into the empty waiting room, and there's just like I just like sit there for another like maybe 5 minutes. And then I like look over, and I see a clipboard with, that personality test. And it has like, oh, Charles, please fill this out. And I was like, this is fucking bullshit. No. I don't even have my glasses on. I'm just sitting here like, no, I'm not doing this. I've done too many of these going through the system. You want to know what this is going to tell you? I'll tell you what this is going to tell you. And so I just sat there. And I just like, and then, yeah, another like 30 minutes, she comes out. Hey, I'm blah, blah, blah. Did you have enough time to finish the personality test? And I was like, oh yeah, plenty, more than enough time. And I gave her the clipboard, and she's like, oh, you didn't like fill out a lot of like any of the answers. And I'm just like, yeah, if somebody was here, I would have told them that, I wasn't told this was going to be this. I don't have my glasses, so I can't even see this writing. And the fact that I've just been like doing nothing here for an hour is ridiculous. She's like, if you need me to fill out this packet before you see me, then I need to take this packet home when I have my glasses on and all that stuff. So I'm sorry if that wasted your time, but yeah. And then I like started walking out and said, hey, come back. Let's just have a talk. Like, what's going on? Come on into the office. I'm so, and we like sit down, and I'm just like, what do you know? She's like, well, I know that your parents and your brother are very worried about you and your drug use. And I was just like, so this is like all about me, like being like on drugs again? And I was just like, no. I was like, honestly, lady, you aren't going to be able to help me at all. I was just like, I got my certification in relapse prevention. And she was just like, oh, really? Like, oh, so if I look you up on the database, like your name's going to come up as like a listed. I was like, bitch, what the fuck are you saying to me? I was just like, I just said I'm certified in relapse prevention. when I completed my relapse prevention for probation, it says a certificate that says completion of, so I was just like, so if you're gonna just hear those words and then automatically use that as like being offended and then just like, oh, really? I'm gonna go look. I'm like, fuck you, I'm out of here. And this is where I was just like fed up with just all the institutional help available. And I just like took a stand. Now, granted, like we're different people, but again, I was just like, screw this. Everybody who has gone to therapy hasn't changed at all, except for like me who went through therapy where it was like my own form of therapy, doing stand-up comedy. And so yeah, when I was like teaching comedy, a lot of my students, like I only would do like a class of 6, and usually only about maybe 2 students are like actually interested in possibly even doing like something that actually goes on the stage. But a lot of people told me, I just want to be able to like be the funny person, wherever I go, or be just in the one of the ones, this lady Mary, who actually had pretty much the same credentials that I used to get that position. But I was like, do you recognize me? And she's like, yeah. I was like, like technically you could be teaching this class. And she was just like, oh, no. And I knew like she had very, very like high level anxiety. And it was because just how her divorce panned out. Like, the divorce was hard on her, but then when she was like finally emotionally ready to like put herself back out on the market and see like who's out there, she said, and my philosophy on comedy is just like owning your pain, and just being able to laugh at it. That's my brand of comedy. It's just tragedy plus time equals comedy. So it's again like, hey, there's that. So when I say like, maybe we can help each other. I can help you just see if this, because honestly, like I've seen comedy just like turn people, even with like, like severe stuttering problems, or just, I've seen it all, like a lot of spectrums, and it brings out a level of confidence that I know, just with the sense of humor that you have, I know that if you just sat down and just refocused your daily, activities on maybe just like this one goal, just like, hey, just try to journal, or you got your poetry and stuff like that. That's great. Like, so my suggestion is just like, okay, let's just keep focusing on that. But again, that poem that you shared in the video, like it was like beautifully written, but it was like the tone, it was just like, like it just worried me, like. And so again, that's why I'm just like so happy we're just like communicating, and that you're not going in that like, I don't know, man, like this has got to be like expensive. So like, I don't know, like I saw these fundraisers that are going for you. So like, I hope those are helping pay for this stuff. But if you're just like listening to yourself, because yeah, we need help, but the help that we need, we're not going to get through that. So let's put our heads together and make a pact to fix this for our fellow like people who are going through this. There's so many of us, and even so many of the norms, who don't admit that they're going through this, and they're the ones who are truly ill. There was a quote where it's just like, the reason birds can fly and humans can't is because birds have perfect faith, because to have faith is to have wings. I think that's like from Peter Pan. And then I have another quote where it's like, birds born in a cage look at flying as an illness, And a lot of these special stories by special kids, segments that I've been watching, well, the 3 that I watched, it's ironic. The first one was a girl who had Williams syndrome. Like I said, I'm wondering if I should do the test to see if I have this. I don't know what it matters if I do or not. But the fact that they were asking me like, do you know if you have this syndrome? And I was like, I've never heard of that. I was born with jaundice, but that's pretty common in Asian babies. And they were like, do you mind like asking your parents? And then I like looked it up. It was like Williams syndrome. Oh yeah, it's like a genetic, it's like a missing sequence of genetic chromosomes. I already know Asians lack the chromosomes that, like break down alcohol, that, like Caucasians, just every other group of human classification has this gene except for Asians and like Native American Indians. And the result of it is that when we drink alcohol, we get like really red. And my mom was already allergic to alcohol too with that. So I got that from her. And so like I've just never been the drinker. I smoked weed and then I got into like heavy drug use for a while. But that was just like my self-medicating. I'm not telling you like, let's go freaking go get you some drugs. But I'm just saying, if you have something throughout your experience through this, like your comfort, toys and your string, whatever that thing was that you said. Like, yeah, I mean, it's just sad that I had to get to a point where I'm like just sitting here like with my things and I'm just like, and finally they're just like, why do you keep doing that? And I'm just like, oh, I just do this when I just feel real tense and I can't smoke a cigarette or something like that, like, thanks for asking. And then I stop. And then they're like, oh, okay, well, yeah. Do you go? I'm like, no, whatever. What are we talking, It's like my brother. He's the one who just keeps prodding at me, like, I almost like drove us off the road because I'm just like, if you don't shut up, I'm going to freaking drive us off the road. So, what the fuck? I'm like, and I just start speeding, and then his girlfriend and his wife now is like, Charles, like, you're scaring me. And I'm like, just tell him to fucking shut up. And he's just like, and he just wouldn't. And yeah, like, that was just in the beginning where it's just like, I keep telling you, like, you're triggering me. Like, this was the first time I like found out the word trigger. So I was just like, this is my trigger. So when I tell you like, I'm speeding up because I'm showing you that I am being bothered clearly. And even when you're yelling at me, I'm sitting here telling you all you have to do is just stop talking about this and I will go back to normal speed. And yet you keep prodding. That's the problem. And so when they got out, I was like, fuck you. And I sped out of their thing. And then, yeah, he's like, I don't think that we would ever trust you if we ever have a child. What kind of uncle can we trust you to be if you just go like 120 when we beg you to slow down? I'm just like, yeah, are we done? Like, cool. So again, some people just don't get it. And if you see a video that I did where my brother just tried to freaking, I don't know, my brother just said something, it set me off maybe more than it should have. But at that point, I was like, you know what? I'm fed up with it. I'm the ill one. I'll spread the illness. And so, yeah, I just lashed out and I was like, here's what happened. Here I am sitting here like, oh yeah, I'm just trying to do good. But then like, I'm still getting pressure because I'm the oldest to like get married and have kids. I'm like, my younger brother has a wife. Go pressure him to go have kids. Why isn't he? They've been married. They've been together for like 5 years. How are they not having kids right now? I keep asking him like, what's going on? He's like, oh, we're seeing like a fertility doctor. I don't know. It's just a process. And I'm like, yeah, but I mean like 5 years. He's like, and so like, after just I got over like, okay, just I shouldn't be doing stuff on electronics, that if this is gonna happen because it's not stopping, I shouldn't do stuff that I'm worried about people finding out. So that was just how I went off that. So I kind of just stopped watching crazy porn, I guess. But I wasn't doing like deep internet, anything like that. Like it was just weird. Just like how, like just my phone would move. Something happened, like, so just that paranoia. I know it's like legit. And when Chris was just like, do you still feel that way? And I know you're like, but I know what you're doing. And yeah. And the Oscar goes to. So again, from somebody who's speaking the language, how do we change this? I went on that Dr. Romani thing and I just said, look, if you're the doctor just saying like, if you're a victim of narcissism, then here's what you got to do. No wonder people are fucked up, because you're already classifying like, okay, this side's a narcissist and then my client's the norm. It's just like, that's the problem, doctor. I'm not as scared to tell it. And yeah, if you want to, and then it's just like, I found another video like that was little, more recent on hers. And then it's like, then there's the authentic, and then it's like, there's the narcissistic whisperer. And I'm like, there are just narcissists and there are authentic narcissists, so I just like, I'm going off. I'm fed up with it. Especially after that Ethan Crumbly, where again, here's this kid who just has these visions, and I've been following these cases lately, and I saw like a tweet he posted about the visions that he saw. It was pretty much like I don't know if you've like seen like photos from like Emmett Till time. I don't know if you know who Emmett Till is, the like black teenager way back like during segregation and stuff like that, who was from the North, and he was in a southern state visiting his family, and just being a kid from the North, just like, I guess, like whistled at a white lady, and that evening, like 4 freaking crazy white guys like kidnapped this boy and like beat him to death, like time, like it's just horrifying. And the pictures that they have of the body that they found, like that's pretty much the visions that he was having, just like real people just like mutilated. And then all the comments are like, sick fuck deserves to be blah 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 blah. I'm like, no, like this cannot stand. And again, I went off like, Ethan isn't the guilty one. It's all of the people who, like, when he posted the picture of the gun, he's like, here's my baby, like here's the ask any questions, I will answer. I'm like, if you can't recognize that's a call for help, then you guys on Facebook are fucking dumb. I had to get off Facebook again because it was killing me, bro. Like, I'm like sitting here looking at my wall posts, and I'm like looking at like stuff that's like just for me, only for my friends. I'm like, so I just kind of do these self reflections, and it looks like you've done it too, but you're just kind of just still at the disconnect of like being able to just come to grips with what's going on, right? So let me just pause this here for a second. Okay, so now I totally understand why we have to be very, very secretive about religious content when we're explaining visions. But again, when I heard you explain like it was like the Jesus poster, only it's like coming out of the ground, I had a similar image. It wasn't like a scary thing, but it was just like, I saw Jesus here and he was directing me to the ground, which led me to I ended up like going through this phase where I like watched a documentary called Exit Through the Gift Shop. It was like about Banksy, and I just like really got interested in doing like stencil art. And then I like started doing a bunch of stencil like Banksy reproductions. Sorry. Maybe I should pause this and